Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Cover Killer Nation fans of all ages, welcome to video 1001. I almost thought about just retiring after video 1000 is a fun little thing to do, but then I realized that there is absolutely no way that I could do that because I said in the video that I was going to keep on going and keep on rolling for you guys, and plus there were so many albums I wanted to talk about this week. It's time for us to get started. We talked about this band that we're about to talk about today. You know who they are. They're in the title, but we're going to mention them. We talked about him a couple years ago. It was a former Mike Portnoy project, Adrenaline Mob. He was the drummer in this project, and he featured Russell Allen from Symphony X on vocals. And originally, at original inception, we had a couple of instrumentalists from Fozzy. We now have a couple instrumentalists, guitarist and bassist, I believe, from Disturbed. So we now know what at least 3 members of Disturbed have been doing with their time ever since they've gone on hiatus a couple of years ago. We of course have David Draymond, who is caps locking his way to internet superiority and also releasing terrible side projects. Meanwhile, a couple of his pals in Disturbed are now palling around in Adrenaline Mob. Now, if you remember correctly, Adrenaline Mob's debut album was reviewed on this channel. I will leave a link somewhere, and hopefully there'll be a pop-up somewhere around my head where you can go and check that out if you did not whenever it came out in 2012. It didn't do that well. It was not something that I was very, very keen on, and so we have now a second album to talk about entitled Men of Honor. And with this with the second album, we no longer have Mike Portnoy on the skins. He has decided to leave the band. There is now somebody brand new who has decided to handle the skin work, so that means that we may have a little bit of a different direction for this band. What I would best describe this band as would be kind of a nice interpretation of hard rock slash, good old traditional heavy metal, being done by people that should certainly be very capable of it. The songwriting in general definitely has a bit of a feel to that vein to it throughout this whole entire album. I have to say that there are a couple of tracks on here that do have some nicer moments, but it tends to be the quieter moments. It tends to be the one where they kind of strip things down a little bit and kind of take things a little bit slower and really build up a mood. Fall in the Pieces is a good example of this. I think Dearly Departed is the other one that I can think of, where it just seems like whenever they are able to envelop a little bit more of a sense of heart and a little bit of a sense of inner emotion, as opposed to just trying to be the most generic hard rock slash heavy metal band on the planet. They definitely have a lot of things going for them. It definitely provides a little bit more of a connection to the audience, as opposed to one that just feels like they're trying to redux the Scorpions meets Nickelback. Yeah, I'm actually going to go there, and that's just kind of a sin to really compare those two. I know Nickelback's ideal, their street cred among this channel isn't exactly great, but I'm going to explain that in just a moment. But it definitely seems like they really didn't exactly want to venture outside the envelope very much. Russell's vocals definitely have a lot of power behind them, but it doesn't have that same trademark punch. He's not exactly, he's not using his full register, and that's something that for this project is kind of the point. It's not really meant for him to have that real prog edge where he has to go and dance up and down different vocal scales in order to really impress the audience, either that in order to really compare with the musical narrative that is swirling behind it. Now, the whole idea that this is almost like a harder rock or even a slightly heavy metal Nickelback is really just in some of the construction. And this, I think you have a lot more to do with the musical side, with those 2 members of Disturbed and this new drummer that we have kind of coming together. And they're building structures that for a hard rock band or an arena rock band definitely have all that feel. But whenever you listen to them, even whenever you listen to some of the tints of some of these songs, even with the way it seems produced, it definitely feels as though you can draw a lot of comparisons to these gentlemen somehow making Nickelback an even heavier band, but still maintain some of the genericies that come along with it. Genericies is probably not even a word, but guess what? It is now. Put it in the Cover Killer Nation dictionary under G for genericies, because it is exactly what best describes this. Lyricism on this is certainly not one of the strong points, I'm going to say. There are moments where it seems that they're doing a little bit to try a little harder, but there are a lot of moments here where we have just your kind of run-of-the-mill hard rock slash basic heavy metal lyrics. This is not something that is altogether all of that fantastic. I would put that more on the hard rock vein than even the heavy metal side. In fact, if you're looking for this in your traditional record shop, you're not going to find it in the metal section. You're going to find it in the rock section, so that's where you should look if you want to purchase this album. The problem with this album is that it's tremendously inconsistent. I mean, yeah, there's some tracks that definitely rock hard, and if that's all the more that you need in order to really have a good time, then by all means, have fun. However, I'm looking at this from a perspective of quality. I'm looking at this from a perspective of whether or not this is really worth it, or else this is something that's just kind of wasted a lot of tape that could have been better used for something a lot better, and I'm more tempted. I am more primed to actually go with the latter idea than the former, because this is something that I will honestly not be revisiting all of that much in the future. And there's absolutely no need for me to. There's absolutely no reason for me to, because there wasn't very much about this album that I enjoyed. There wasn't a lot of material of substance on here that I really found to be all of that qualifiable. I enjoyed little pieces of perhaps one individual more so than I have enjoyed the whole of just about any of these songs, with the exception of those that I've already previously mentioned, where the composition slows down a little bit more. I mean, we are having a lot of traditional ideas put on here. You know, you're in a nice car where you're listening to some ZZ Top, you know, that whole hard rock image where you're really looking back at, you know, one of the real trailblazers of the genre. That's something that Nickelback has done. You're talking about how you want to fuck some girl and have her scream your name. That's another trailblazing tactic. Leave something like that to a band such as Steel Panther that just does it way better than you. Or even just, you know, call up the Scorpions and say, listen, we wanted to do this project where we kind of used some ideals, only we don't really know how to use metaphor. We really don't know how to really write lyrics, so maybe you guys should just come back and handle it. You know, a couple more love at first things, you know, rock you like a hurricane. You know, there's no real metaphor like that in here. Feel the Adrenaline is the closest thing that you could really have to that, but it's not about, you know, the relationship with a woman. That's the crazy thing about this. It's just, wow, there's a lot of things about this album that just really, really strike me as poor. From the musical standpoint, once again, the generic side of this is what really bogs me down, what really bugs me, and I think it's really what's starting to bug me about Disturbed in general. This is actually starting to affect my opinion on Disturbed as a band, thinking that if, you know, the collective of the individuals in Disturbed come back together, it's going to have that same trademark Disturbed sound, but it's just not going to sound that fresh anymore. The freshness level is gone. It has been, you know, close to 15 years, so you almost have to have, after 15 years, a little bit of musical evolution in order for an album to really, you know, take somebody's breath away or something like that. Either that, or you really have to get very, very fortunate with your sound, with it sounding so incredibly fresh, or just taking a little bit more of a different take or a different twinge, or inject it with some goddamn steroids in order for it to fucking happen. But it's very rare that it happens. Ask AC/DC. If AC/DC releases another album, it's not going to be the album of the year. I can almost guarantee you that. I can almost foresee and foreshadow that, and I know people are going to be pissed at me whenever I review it because it's in the works. It would be like if Metallica was doing thrash metal albums ever since 1983. They almost had to do the albums that they did in order to explore the depths a little bit. That way, if they decided to return to that fold, it would be something that would definitely have a little bit of an air of freshness to it, even if it didn't recall their classic material. This album is just so bad that it's worth going on these tangents, because I could easily just flip out for no reason and get unnecessarily angry about this, and I know that you guys would love to see that. I know that'd be something that you'd just be aching for, but I can't do that for this album. It's too easy of a target. It's painted right over it saying, Cover Killer Nation, rip me to shreds, and I just don't want to do it. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste my time because I already did that with their first album. I've already addressed some of the critical flaws over there, and Russell, I understand this is a fun project for you, but I think that you could be, you know, working on another Symphony X record if you guys are even still together, and that would be much better, completely, because these two Adrenaline Mob albums so far, the full lengths, have been garbage. I have enjoyed very, very little on each of them. This one I actually think I hate worse than the first one. The first one at least had a couple of things on it that were halfway decent, and those were few and far between. This is a project that for me is just, it's not worth me even talking about the next album, but I probably will, because once again, you gotta keep trying every single time just to make sure that you get, you know, that you understand that this is kind of what's going on, as opposed to having them release that killer album and you miss it. So it's really up to you whether or not you want to check this out. For me, this is a 51 out of 100. Just not much on here that I really enjoyed whatsoever. In fact, this is one that will probably just sit and collect dust for the next ad infinitum period of time. If you're a fan of these guys and this pisses you off, I'm sorry, but that's my opinion. I have an opinion just like you do. If you have never heard of these guys and this is dissuading you, I still recommend that you give it a try because opinions can be different. You may end up liking it, whereas I absolutely hated it. And for those of you out there who just don't give a shit and are watching this just because it's me, thank you. I appreciate that. Talk to you guys later. Definitely like this up, subscribe, and check out Theater of the Sun as the other channel. I will have a link in the description box where we're going to be talking about some movies and some television shows, and hopefully get some gaming on there eventually. Having some snags with that, but we'll talk to you guys later. Peace.